Welcome back to Dragon Army Books. My name is Dustin, and it is finished. I have finally completed the entire series by John Gwynne entitled The Faithful and the Fallen, with the final book in the series called Wrath. I read and reviewed each of the books in the series. You can click the link in the annotation if you would like to watch those reviews. This review is going to be particularly about the final book, Wrath, and it is going to be spoiler free. So I'm not going to go in depth on characters or plot points or anything like that, which is somewhat tough because being the final book in the series, and especially one that is in this kind of style and genre, there's not much that I can talk about without giving away previous story plot elements. So we're going to be fairly thin here, but I'll still try to be as robust and comprehensive as possible. So it will be a helpful video for those that are fans of the series and have read it, or for those that haven't yet. As mentioned in my previous videos on The Faithful and the Fallen, this is a primarily Celtic-inspired epic fantasy series. So Celtic, it's different than the standard European fantasy flair, although there's a lot of comparable elements to that. And then it is epic fantasy in the sense of epicness. It has a named cast of over 100 characters. Not just characters that kind of just come in and out of the picture, but 100 characters that you pretty much need to keep up with and keep track of, not only their names, but their titles and where on the map they're from and where their allegiances lie, and that even might shift over time. So it is epic. And then it's epic in the sense that you've got a map at the beginning of the book, which is very helpful. And what's really cool is that that entire map is used throughout the series. I don't know if I've ever before seen an epic fantasy with a map that they use every city, every mountain range, every forest. And I'm not saying that it always has to be done, but it was cool and unique in this series that that entire map was spanned multiple times. Now, if you know nothing about the story so far, there are a multitude of POVs, I'm pretty sure well over a dozen, that are scattered throughout this known world, the Banished Lands, and this book is really split into two parts. It is the build-up and the battle. It's the final battle, the build-up and the final epic battle. And so the build-up takes a little bit of time, and it is this gradual approach where John Gwynne, the author, is getting all of the puzzle pieces into place, the chess pieces into place, if you will, so that the final battle can take place and all of those dominoes, I know I just referenced 3 different games, but the dominoes could then fall in the final battle in a very pleasing way. A lot of people on both sides of this bloody war die in some fairly gruesome ways. There are some deaths that will cause you to weep, and there are others that will cause you to shout and celebrate. But it's war, and so there's certainly going to be death on both sides of the battlefield. But Gwynne does a great job, I believe, of bringing us to a satisfying conclusion, answering most, if not all, of the questions that you might have, and giving us the fate of the Banished Lands once and for all. So, I said that the layout for this book is primarily the build-up and the final battle, and I stand by that. I really do believe that. And I think that in final books of series, sometimes they can be plagued with this kind of problem. And that is that the buildup is somewhat of a trudge to get through. And as a reader, you might be bored with, like, get us to the important bits. Not that there's not action up front. This book is full of action scenes and sequences. But really, it is a significant portion of getting everybody to the right place. And for some, including myself, that's kind of like, all right, let's get it over with. And I know it has to happen. I know it has to happen for the good things to happen near the end. But I do feel like this book suffered from that a little bit, of just needing to get everything in the right place for the final battle to occur. But that final battle, guys, listen. It's a long book, right? So I don't, over 100 chapters. I don't remember how many, 117, 120, something like that. 35 chapters of final battle. There are 35 chapters of the final battle. I have never before read a battle that takes place in the length of some books. I know that would be a somewhat shorter book, but 35 chapters. Of course, we're moving POVs, we're shifting where we are and whose eyes we're seeing through, but 35 chapters from the moment the final battle begins, the howl takes place and everybody gets into place, until the final cutting off of someone's head. And the thing here is that Gwynne thrives with his battle scenes. I've mentioned it before, but Gwynne does an incredible job of giving us ridiculous detail to not only the fight sequences, but to the dismemberments and to the battle wounds and the consequences thereof. John Gwynne does some reenactment of his own, and so I think he's very well versed with battle, sword and shield fighting, and so he brings that to the forefront here, and not in a way that is difficult for the casual reader to enjoy, but it's enough for the casual reader to say, okay, this author knows what he's talking about, while giving us very, very vivid, maybe even too vivid at times, images of these battle sequences, whether it is sword and shield or small knife blade or a duel between two people or a big massive shield wall battle or bow and arrow. I mean, it's all in there, and he does every single one of those battle sequences in such a pleasing way. Pleasing might have been the wrong word, just because it is bloody. Like Malice, there were some rough battle scenes. Valor, I think it amps it up, but when it got to Ruin, I think Gwynne was just like, look, body parts are just going to be flying around the battlefield and you're going to have to deal with it. Like guts are going to be spilled out on the ground. So listen, if you're weak, then don't read this. That's not what I was going to say. If those kind of things make you weak to the stomach, then you might want to fast forward your reading some when it starts to get exceptionally bloody. Unfortunately, there are no major surprises though. Listen, this series does go a few different places than expected, but it really does follow a lot of the traditional fantasy tropes. Gwynne does have his slight twists with those tropes, like with the Chosen One. Won't go into detail, but he does have a twist there for sure. But it's not in the it's not the twist that I thought they would be, and he doesn't take us the places that I thought we would go. Here in the final book, there are very few unexpected deaths, and there are very few unexpected twists as to where the narrative is going. It's fair. It's just kind of giving us a story that we somewhat expected, but in a very good way. I would say that more of the twist or the subverted expectations came in previous books in the series, but this one is just pretty much, hey, here's the setup, here's the battle, there's deaths on both sides, so it will leave you guessing who's going to die and who's going to make it through. And there were a few characters that I love that I was hoping were going to make it through that didn't, and then there were a few characters that I was confident weren't going to make it through that actually did. And by this point in the journey, 4 thick books in, I am connected to these characters, not to the 100 plus cast from the beginning of the book, but at least to a dozen or so characters that I really feel for and really had this emotional connection to. I've mentioned in a previous video, I believe it was in my Ruin review, that there was one character that I did not care for at the beginning of the series at all, and he became my favorite character, or at least one of my favorite characters near the end. There's a scene that really gripped my heartstrings, and it's when this character does fall in battle, makes it to the Bridge of Swords. Is that, I believe that's the afterlife, and the scene there that Gwynne writes out, where this man drops his blade for the final time and runs forward, is just one of the most beautifully gripping scenes I've read in literature. It is such a beautiful scene. And then there's another scene. There's one phrase at the end of a chapter where it says this character turns and runs, and it caused me to celebrate. It caused me so much joy finally to see this enemy run in shame. I love these key moments that an entire series has been building towards, and Gwynne really gave us the payoff. I don't think many readers will get to the end of this series and be dissatisfied with with any kind of like arcs. I think they will be completely satisfied with what answers Gwynne gives us and what resolutions he gives. Not everything is tied in a nice bow at the end, but he certainly gives us a period to the long sentence that was The Faithful and the Fallen. I came to really enjoy the series. I still think the cast is way too large and there's too many POVs going on, but it is a beautiful, beautiful fantasy story. Gwynne knows exactly what he's doing, and he's only getting better and better and better at his craft. I like, this is probably my second favorite book in the series, with Ruin being my favorite book in the series, the penultimate book of the series, but it was an enjoyable ride all the way through. It's a heavy series. I don't think it's necessarily for everyone, but if you enjoy fantasy, if you love epic fantasy, then this will certainly be a series that you need to put in your TBR, because Gwynne is going, if he's not already, he's certainly going to be one of those major contenders in epic fantasy in the years to come. Well, we did it. We finished The Faithful and the Fallen, another epic fantasy series. In fact, I believe really just my second epic fantasy series is now complete. What did you think of The Faithful and the Fallen? Which was your favorite book in the series? Was it Malice, Valor, Ruin, or Wrath? Put it in the comments down below. And as always, thank you so much for taking the time to watch and like this video. If you haven't yet, click subscribe, join the Dragon Army, and we'll see you in the next one.